Hey there, welcome to Riding with Mr. Rock Dashwell. I'm so glad that we're back here together. It seems like we've been apart for so long, and I'm just ready to get started riding again. For all of you out there that are listening for the first time, I had a introductory video that kind of gets you up to speed on how this whole thing is going to work, but in video format, because I know some people don't want to read a really long letter about everything that's going to happen. But a real quick recap in case you didn't watch that video or read that letter. Every day there's going to be a new writing lesson I'll post, and it'll look just like this. I'll have the same introductory page, but it'll say episode 2 for our next episode, and so on and so forth. So we'll have those daily videos for writing, and then we'll also have a little daily challenge that'll get posted every day. In addition, there'll be a Zoom meeting every day that follows up this lesson. Hopefully, you can watch the lesson before our Zoom meeting starts. That way, you can have questions ready for me, or even better, have some writing to share. I really hope that you come prepared with some writing so that we can enjoy listening to each other's writing and be inspired by it. I don't think there's anything else to say except if you haven't already done it.
Bring them out, bring them out, hey. Bring them out, bring them out, yeah. Bring them out, bring them out, hey. Bring them out.
So, I don't know if you saw that one coming, but it's been a long time since we heard that song. So if you haven't already done it, I would pause the video, get your writing journal out, or you know what? You can use your computer. It might be a little tricky since you're watching the video at the same time, but if you know how to, you could totally split screens. Or, you could watch the video, pause it, go back to your document and type there. That would be up to you. But make sure you have something to write with or write on. So today's episode is going to be talking about how to generate ideas for fiction writing. If you looked at my video earlier, you know that all the material that we're going to cover, we've actually learned at some point before. So while this is review, it's super, super important stuff to review, because I know that a lot of us will hear some of these things and go, I didn't know that, or, oh, that's new to me. So today's episode for fiction writing, episode 1, is called Generating Ideas. The first thing we do when we start any unit is figure out what stories we're going to write about. And this unit is no different. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So for fiction writing, when we start, we want to think about some trouble. So our big idea is that writers look to moments of trouble from their own life to generate story ideas. It's that first star there, that big idea. And the real thing there is, I know many times when I talk to you or when I talk to students, we seem to not have a problem in our story. Or we think that problems don't happen in our own life that we're writing about. And now's the time to come up with some of those stories. I'm gonna move this because that's gonna keep being a problem. Hopefully that's a good spot for it. So the first thing that we're going to do, and you should write down on your notebook, is at the top, I would write in fiction writing, generating ideas. And the reason you're writing that in is not because I'm grading you. It's so that you can go back and find where things are at. And so keeping with what we've been doing recently, we're going to go ahead and put a 1 up there. Not because this is necessarily 1 in your journal, but because that is episode 1. Episode numero uno. That's kind of hard to see, isn't it? Let's go and get that a little closer here. Yeah, I think that's a little better. So, episode 1, fiction writing, generating ideas. So, why do we want to start with moments of trouble? Well, um, this is going to be easiest for you then to have a connection with your own character. Easiest for you to actually experience what your character is going through because you've already done it or something like that. So, uh, well, I skipped ahead before we actually wrote down what we wanted to. So, let's make sure we write down kind of the big idea here. So, the big idea is um, what I have written there: moments of trouble. I'm just going to abbreviate it for myself. Um, Thinking back about something we talked about in history, telegraphic writing. Feel free to put down what you need to put down so that you remember. I know moments of trouble means, hey, today we need to realize that when we think of these story ideas, we're looking through our own life to figure out, hey, what was a moment of trouble? All right, let's move on to that next slide then. All right, so I'm sure that you're kind of thinking to yourself, hey, I thought we were doing fiction writing, as in fake, not true. It's not real. Well, these are still based in reality in some way. That's the easiest thing for us to do. The easiest thing that will make our stories quality. It would be very easy for you to just start writing a fantasy story because a lot of you have amazing creative ideas. However, the struggle with fantasy is reining all of that in so we can actually have some sort of connection to our character. So we're going to start just this unit with fiction, not do fantasy. Maybe we can do that later in the year. But just thinking about fiction, I'm sure you're thinking, isn't that, if we just do what we've been doing where we say, hey, moments of trouble, isn't that just writing a story then about my own life? And that's personal narrative? But here's the difference. You can put some twists in it. You like that, didn't you? Another option that's going to make it a little different is this character is different than us, and they can make different decisions that we, maybe looking back, wish we would have made. We can end the story in a different way than it ended in reality. And you're going to see here that when I come up with some of these story ideas, I'm going to try to change them and adapt them. So where do we start with that? Well, we want to actually think then about some blurbs. And I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of a blurb, but I actually happen to have some real high quality books with us that would give us an idea of what a blurb looks like. So I brought along with me The Hobbit. There's probably at least one person in my class who's read The Hobbit. Probably only one, and that's not me. And so if we look at the back, that's where we find the blurb. And this little blurb here just kind of tells us what the story is going to be about, the big idea. So when Thorin Oakenshield and his band of dwarves embark upon a dangerous quest to reclaim the hoard of gold stolen from them by the evil dragon Smaug, Gandalf the wizard suggests an unlikely accomplice, Bilbo Baggins, an unassuming hobbit dwelling in peaceful Hobbiton. And on it goes. So it introduces us to the character and some other important ones along the way. It also says something about the problem here, the evil dragon Smaug, and that there was some gold stolen too. And it tells us more. But let's take a look at another example because, I mean, only one of you know what this book even is, probably. Maybe some other people are more familiar with this book, Twilight. I haven't read The Hobbit, but unfortunately I can say that I've read this book. Okay, we look on the back and you know what? There's a bunch of sort of like quotes and stuff, and that's not really what we're looking for. So the other one was on the back, but this one's not. So we look inside, and at the very top, again, it just kind of gives me some quotes. So sometimes, you got to kind of look for this. So here we are. It says, when Isabella Swan moves to the gloomy town of Forks and meets the mysterious, alluring Edward Cullen, her life takes a thrilling and terrifying turn. Okay, and I don't want to read the rest of that, but the point is we're introduced to the character, something happens, and there's some sort of problem that they're introducing us to. And last but not least, although it is the worst of the Harry Potter books, and everyone kind of realizes that, is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now, I can only find my version of it that is full of pictures, so it might not be exactly like yours. If we look at the back, all there is to see is, let's move this mic or this camera that's kind of annoying me. All there is to see is a quote and a really awesome drawing. We go to the inside back cover, and that's not it. Just some things about the author, although great, cool. Glad we know about you. So we go to the front, and there we have it. So this says, the Dursleys were so mean and hideous that summer that all Harry Potter wanted was to get back to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. But just as he's packing his bags, Harry receives a warning from a strange, impish creature named Dobby, who says that if Harry Potter returns to Hogwarts, disaster will strike. That sounds like a problem to me, for sure. And obviously, we're introduced to our main character as well. So we're seeing sort of that these blurbs give us, in as few words as possible, an exciting way to think about what our story is going to be about. So, cool. But I'm not a professional author, you're probably thinking, just like I am. So how do we do that? Oh, hey, that's on my slide. How do we do that? Well, someone wanted something, but this gets in the way. And so this happens finally, and there's some sort of resolution. So this little thing here at the bottom is something that we definitely want to write down as far as how we can record an idea. So I'm going to write down on my journal example, write a blurb to record story ideas. And then I'm going to go ahead and write underneath this the example, as in how that would look. And it would look like this. Someone, your character name, wanted something, ... But something gets in the way, often called a problem. And so our character does something to overcome that problem. Finally, there's some sort of resolution, or at least a resolution we can talk about in the blurb without spoiling it for the reader. So that's our way we're going to think about how to come up with these story ideas. So if you're watching on video and have followed along so far, pause the video now and come up with a few different ideas that are moments in trouble in your life, and record them in the version of a blurb. Now, I guess what I should say is, why don't we take a look at kind of how I do that? That would only be fair before I have you pause the video. So the first story that comes to mind is kind of a lame story, but it's important to write down even the lame ones. So my lame story is, so let's see, Jonathan. Well, I don't want to write my own name down, so let's just say Chris. So let's see. Chris wanted to take out his anger on a bar of soap. This is sounding really weird. Maybe I should explain to you the story. Basically, when I was a kid, I got really upset. I broke a bar of soap. My dad found it, asked why I had done that. And even though it was just a bar of soap, I lied. I know. I lied about breaking a bar of soap and blamed it on my best friend who lived next door to me. I know. I'm a really good person. And then my dad confronted the friend and he was honest and said that he didn't do it. And now, me being honest, I actually don't know that anything ever came of that. But at the time, it was a huge thing in my mind that I actually lied about this, and I have no idea why. So Chris, or me, wanted to take out his anger on a bar of soap, and I don't remember actually why I was angry. So this is going to be really great because I'll be able to make up some of those things that I forget. So Chris wanted to take out his anger on a bar of soap, but he didn't consider that his dad would find out. So, when he lied, I'm not going to put that. I'll say when he blamed his best friend, he didn't anticipate what would happen next. Finally, Chris, not me, Chris, has to decide whether I feel like I need to put some sort of moral to the story here. Finally, Chris has to decide whether his friendship is worth coming clean to his dad. Nah, that wasn't much of a life lesson, but that is kind of the gist of it. Okay, so you can see that's my version of a blurb, and I've adapted a story that happened to me in real life and put someone else's name in. Hey, I will probably not choose Chris as my character's name. And if you want to stick with your own name, that's fine for right now. But the next step for you is to pause this video and try this out with one of your story ideas. Go ahead and stop. Okay, so let's go on to sort of our last step here. We hopefully have at least one blurb of one idea we're considering, and I would suggest you going on and probably making more than one blurb because it's really hard to just think of your first idea and say, hey, that's my best one I'll ever have. What? That's your first one. How could that be? But that's going to be up to you. Let's go ahead and look at what our next step would be. And you might go back and forth. You might say, do a blurb, do another blurb, and then stop and choose one of those to do this next step with before you do a blurb about a different story idea. So what is our next step here? Our next step is we want to try out a scene from one of these ideas. So I have a couple sort of pointers that are helpful to remember when we're trying out a scene. And this could be the first time we write this story, and it won't be how we start our story when we actually tell it later on. But this is an easy way to get into the world of the story because you know and I know it's so common to start a new story and kind of go, well, where do I begin? So here's how we begin. We start with our trouble scene. For me, you know, while it could be actually the breaking of the soap, I'm going to say that my dad finding out about the breaking of the soap is the most troubling one, because it really gives me the dilemma of, oh, okay, so I've broken the soap and I don't want my dad to realize I did that. And now I'm in conflict. So I'm going to choose when he confronts me about it. So I'm just going to start right here, and I'm going to choose either dialogue or small actions. Now, for me, because I am having my dad confront me, I'm going to choose dialogue, but this would be up to you. So, and I promise this is me writing this for the first time. So I'm going through the same thing you're going through. So, dialogue, my dad talking to me. So I'm going to say, what in the world happened here? Questioned Chris's father. So you'll notice I'm taking a real third person point of view. Questioned Chris's father as he turned toward Chris with the pieces of soap in his outstretched palm. See, now I started with this scene, and I started with it because it's the most vivid. This is the scene I can imagine. And now I don't obviously remember whether this is exactly how it happened, and this is fiction, so it doesn't matter. But since I can visualize now the next steps, it makes it a lot easier for me to continue writing. I know what's going to happen next. His hand quivered in the air as Chris's eyes looked up from the floor to meet his. And then I'll have my character speak. But I am at the bottom of the page, so I don't need you to see me write a bunch more. What I need you to do is start to write your own trouble scene. And all we need is a few sentences. You don't need to write your whole story right now. This is a jumping off place. If you can do this blurb, if you can then take that same story idea and get started with this little trouble scene where we can come back to this at any time, you're going to have a wealth of stories that you can choose from, a wealth of places that you could start writing. And we all know that the most difficult thing is to start writing. So, writers, at this point, I'm going to bid you adieu, and I hope to see you in our Zoom conference, our Zoom video conference. And during that time, I'm going to be there to hopefully share more of my writing with you, because I'll have written more myself. And I hope that you'll be able to share your writing with me. In addition, if you have questions or something that you want me to clarify about the lesson we just did, that will be the time to ask me those questions. If you're not able to make the Zoom, feel free to email me anytime, and I'll try to get back to you within 24 hours of you emailing me. I hope this worked out well for you, and stay on the lookout for next videos ahead if you don't make it to the Zoom. And don't forget about today's daily challenge.